Hello, Shameless Writers. I'm Kristin McTiernan, here to give you your weekly dose of writing wisdom. We're on week 4 of Nonfiction Month, and I've pulled out my cardigan, I guess, to talk about self-help. It seems like cardigans are what nurturing people wear. I wouldn't know. Self-help is the least specific nonfiction category, and there's a lot of overlap with the other categories we've already discussed. For instance, a book can be self-help, but also be business. But what separates self-help from other categories is that its implicit purpose is to help the reader to fix their overall life. For instance, Rachel Hollis has 2 books in the self-help top 20 right now. Her new release, Girl Stop Apologizing, is at number 2, and her 2018 release of Girl Wash Your Face is at number 20. Her books give both business advice detailing her journey from a lifestyle blogger to a lady mogul, as well as life advice including mental health awareness, dealing with personal tragedy, and managing your relationships. So with that in mind, I'm going to give you 6, yes, 6, I like to number things oddly, tips to consider when writing your self-help book. Number 1, don't be afraid to go broad. We talked about the importance of having a very specific theme when it comes to your memoir or your business books. But the benefit of self-help books is they don't have to be specific. They're more about style than substance, so instead of focusing on a very specific theme, what you want to focus on with a self-help book is what you want your reader to walk away feeling. Some bestsellers have titles like The Confidence Code and I Will Make You Thin. Yes, that's a real title. These are very general concepts, and yet they fly off the shelves. Why? Because the books were written skillfully enough to imbue the reader with confidence that they can do whatever the author did. Even though the advice in these books was general, unremarkable, and easily accessible from other sources, they still walked away feeling incredibly positive not only about themselves, but also about the author. So save your ultra-specific topics for your SEO-optimized blog posts. That way you can drive traffic to your book. Self-help is the one nonfiction category where general is better. Number 2, each chapter should have an action step. The genre is called self-help, which means it is your job to guide the reader to help themselves, which they obviously don't know how to do already. Like our friend Billy Bob Thornton once said in a movie that I never saw, but the preview made me laugh, you can't help yourself because yourself sucks. So for every chapter, give an actionable step for your reader to follow so they can start their journey towards the end point that you promised them. Even if it seems super obvious to you, it may not be to them. That's why they're reading your book. Number 3, don't be afraid to repeat yourself. Like many nonfiction books, self-help books are normally not read in one sitting. Often the reader will sit down while they're in the doctor's office waiting for an appointment, or right before bed, or, let's face it, on the toilet. This is especially true for moms because when else do they get time to themselves? So your reader is going to be reading a chapter or a section at a time, putting it away, and then picking it up sometime in the future. You want to keep this in mind when you're structuring your book. Because of the way that they read, they might need a gentle reminder of something that you said in a previous chapter. Or when you're constructing your exercises or actionable steps, you might want to consider that they might be reading about this actionable step in the doctor's office. So make sure it's easy for them to pick it up, go back to where you gave your instructions, and let them do the exercise at a later time. Though repetition is the kiss of death, particularly in fiction, no one likes to be talked down to. For nonfiction, specifically self-help, it might be the difference between your reader skimming your book and tossing it aside, and actually having them implement your steps. Number 4, be relatable. Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In was a bestseller, but it came under fire for not being terribly relatable when it came to how she balanced her career and her family. The average working woman cannot hire a nanny and cannot build a child's play space right there in her office. Most of us aren't CEOs. Because of this, much of her intended audience, working women who want to rise in their professions, were turned off because they felt that they, as mothers who could not afford help or perhaps didn't even have a spouse to help out, could not benefit from her book. Now, as I said, it was still a bestseller, but if you're not Sheryl Sandberg and you can't get on Oprah, it will be a great deal more difficult to sell your book if a few reviews, particularly if it's the first few reviews, tout your book as being unhelpful to a large segment of your intended audience. I mentioned in the memoir book that your audience isn't necessarily picking up your memoir to read about you, but rather your theme. With a self-help book, that's still somewhat true, but it is much more about you, because you are presuming to give instructions and advice, whereas in a memoir, you're just telling your truth and hoping that the reader can take something from it. Since you're standing in the position of teacher, educator, or expert, make sure that your reader can relate to you and your struggle. Number 5, do your research first. And by first, I mean super duper first. Before you decide on your chapter titles, before you even decide on the points you want to make to bolster your overall advice. Do your research, and I do not just mean a quick Google search. Regardless of your overall topic, create a robust bibliography that includes periodicals, that includes newspapers, and that includes academic research. If it's applicable, also include personal interviews because those really make an impact on your reader. And don't just cherry pick whatever bolsters your opinion. Look at conflicting research as well. These can give you a stronger understanding of what kind of preconceptions your reader is coming to the table with. You can't give good advice if you don't know what you're up against. Number 6, follow the outline. For self-help books, there is an unspoken established structure for how the chapters should go. Nearly all of the books, regardless of what they're about, follow this unspoken structure. Why is this? Because it works. It aligns with the way humans, specifically adult learners, process and retain information. Many authors shudder at the idea of being like everybody else or being derivative. Let me stop you right there. Nonfiction is not about creativity, though a sprinkle of it can go a long way. The established structure is eminently useful, and being useful is what nonfiction is all about. If you deviate from this structure, let it be because you found a better way through your research, not just because you're trying to be original. So here is the preferred structure of self-help books. Step 1, write an introduction. Who are you and why should your reader listen to you? Step 2, explain the problem you are writing to address. Empathize with your reader and tell them that you feel and understand their pain. Step 3, briefly describe your solution. How did you come to this solution? How has it helped you or others? Offer encouragement that this solution can help your readers too. Step 4, give a logical, step-by-step explanation of your solution, usually spanning over several chapters. Make sure that you have thoroughly explained your plan, routine, or system, and ensure the reader has the ability to implement it in their own lives. Step 5, wrap up on a positive note. Tell them where they can find more content from you or more resources about your content in general. Make sure you don't leave them hanging as they progress on their journey. Self-help books offer a great opportunity to create evergreen content that will continue to sell long after your launch date. As always, if you like this content, remember to like, share online, and subscribe to let YouTube know you like what I'm doing. For the last week of Nonfiction Month, I'll be talking about health and wellness books. So until then, take care and write well.